What does it take to turn a dream into a destiny? To shape history, not just in the frames of a film, but in the echoes of time itself. Some chase greatness. Others are born into it. But only a few, only the rarest among us, carry the weight of an entire nation's soul on their shoulders. Burkina Faso knows struggle. It knows sacrifice. But above all, it knows how to tell a story. And on this day, at this moment, one man has told a story so powerful, so profound, that history itself had no choice but to stop and listen. His name? Dani Kouyaté. His victory? The Yennega Golden Stallion is the highest honor in African cinema. But this is not just about a film, not just about a director. This is about the spirit of a people, about a nation that has risen, not with weapons, not with war, but with art. This is the story of Katanga, the dance of the scorpions. Let's get started. Burkina Faso has long been the heartbeat of African storytelling. From the dusty courtyards of Ouagadougou to the international film circuits of the world, this small yet mighty nation has carried the soul of African cinema on its shoulders. And yet, in a world that often overlooks the brilliance of the continent, true recognition comes at a cost. One paid in patience, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the power of one's craft. Dani Kouyaté knows this struggle better than most. His journey to cinematic greatness was neither swift nor easy. It was a path carved out through decades of dedication, perseverance, and a relentless pursuit of artistic truth. His name is synonymous with storytelling, not just because of his films, but because storytelling is in his very blood. Born into a lineage of griots, the traditional West African historians, poets, and custodians of oral history, Kouyaté was never destined for an ordinary life. He inherited more than just a family name. He inherited a responsibility. The responsibility to preserve, to elevate, and to pass down the voices of his ancestors through a medium that would outlive them all, film. But being born into a legacy does not guarantee success. Kouyaté's road was long, winding, and filled with moments that would have crushed a lesser spirit. The year was 2001. A young Dani Kouyaté had already made waves in the African film industry. His film, Sia, The Python's Dream, had captivated audiences and earned him widespread acclaim. The Fespaco jury watched in admiration as he wove together a tale that was uniquely Burkinabe. Rich in tradition, yet bold in its storytelling. For many, the signs were clear. Dani Kouyaté was destined to take home the Golden Stallion, the ultimate prize, the moment every African filmmaker dreams of. And then, silence. The award went instead to Ali Zawa by Moroccan director Nabil Ayouch. Kouyaté's film had won recognition, but not the ultimate victory. The dream that had seemed within reach was now slipping into history as another almost. This is the moment that defines an artist. Some retreat, bitter with the weight of what could have been. Others push forward, fueled by a fire that burns even brighter. Kouyaté chose the latter. But he would not rush. He would not force destiny's hand. He understood something that many filmmakers forget in the age of instant gratification. Great stories take time. And so, he waited. Years passed. African cinema has changed. Burkina Faso changed. The world has changed. And Dani Kouyaté? He studied, he worked, he honed his craft with a patience that only those destined for greatness can endure. While many saw his absence from the winner's circle, few understood what was happening behind the scenes. Kouyaté wasn't just a filmmaker, he was a perfectionist. He was not interested in quick releases or short-lived trends. His vision was clear. When he returned, he would return with something undeniable. His work became more meticulous. Scripts were not just written, they were sculpted, reshaped, torn apart, and reassembled until every word carried weight. He was not chasing another nomination. He was building something that could stand the test of time. These were the years when he perfected Katanga, the dance of the scorpions. The years when he made sacrifices, turned down opportunities, and refused to compromise on his vision. When you want to say things, you take your time to write them, he once said. It can take 2 years. When you are satisfied with the script after 2 years, you start looking for money. It can take a year or 2 years. After you shoot, it can take another year. For many, these words would seem like an excuse for delay. For Kouyaté, they were the blueprint for excellence. And then the time came. By the time Katanga, the dance of the scorpions, was ready, Kouyaté was no longer just a filmmaker trying to prove himself. He was a master at his craft, a veteran who had learned the game, understood its rules, and now knew how to bend them in his favor. When he stepped onto the stage at Fespaco 2025, he was not the same man who had once left without the Golden Stallion. He was something greater, a legend in waiting. But the real moment of victory was not when his name was called. It was not when he held the trophy in his hands. The real victory had been in the years of struggle, in the late nights perfecting his work, in the quiet moments of doubt that he had fought through and won. The world saw a man celebrating. But what they did not see was a man who had been fighting for this moment long before the cameras ever arrived. This was not luck. This was not fate. This was Dani Kouyaté. And this was his time. But what did he do? What is the hype about this film? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Some films entertain, films educate, and some films force the audience to look deep within themselves, questioning the very nature of power, morality, and destiny. Katanga, the Dance of the Scorpions, is not a film, it is a statement. It is a mirror held up to the world, reflecting not just the past or the present, but the eternal cycle of human ambition and destruction. At first glance, Katanga may seem like a familiar tale, Shakespeare's Macbeth reimagined through an African lens, but Dani Kouyaté is not one to simply adapt. He transforms. He takes a classic tragedy and weaves it into something entirely new, entirely Burkinabe, entirely African. This is not just a film about a king consumed by power. It is a warning, a prophecy, a reminder that history doesn't repeat itself. It rhymes, and the echoes of old betrayals, old downfalls, and old ambitions still shape the world we live in today. To tell a story about power and madness is one thing. To make the audience feel that descent into darkness is another. Kouyaté does not simply show the corruption of a ruler, he makes the audience live it. Shot entirely in black and white, Katanga strips away the distractions of color, leaving only contrasts, light and shadow, good and evil, justice and tyranny. The visual style is not just an artistic choice, it is a statement. In a world that often presents power as something glamorous, something desirable, Katanga reminds us that real power, unchecked and absolute, is nothing but a void, an abyss that swallows everything in its path. The choice of cinematography is deliberate. The harsh lighting, the sharp contrasts, the deep blacks and glaring whites, all of it serves a purpose. There are no soft grays in this world. There is no room for moral ambiguity. When a ruler crosses the line, he does not do so gradually. He falls, and he falls fast. The title itself is layered with meaning, the Dance of the Scorpions. In many African cultures, the scorpion is a symbol of both power and destruction. It is a creature that is feared yet revered, deadly yet elegant, its movements precise, calculated, almost hypnotic. But the real danger of a scorpion lies in its sting, which is often self-inflicted. This is the heart of Katanga. A ruler who believes he can control the venom of ambition, only to realize too late that power, like a scorpion, has no loyalty. It serves no master. It consumes all. Kouyaté's screenplay is ruthlessly poetic. The dialogue is minimalist, almost lyrical, as though the characters themselves are aware that they are trapped in an age-old tragedy. Silence is as much a weapon as words. The unspoken tensions, the slow unraveling of trust, the weight of fate hanging over every scene. It all builds toward the inevitable climax. At the center of it all is the king, a man who begins with noble intentions, but is slowly undone by his fears, his desires, his demons. He does not simply turn into a tyrant overnight. He rationalizes every decision. He convinces himself that he is acting for the greater good, that his enemies are conspiring against him. His downfall can be avoided if only he takes one more step, makes one more sacrifice, one more step, until there are no steps left, only the abyss. Kouyaté crafts this descent with surgical precision. Every scene is calculated, deliberate, and suffocatingly tense. The audience knows where this is headed, and yet they cannot look away. They watch in horror as the king transforms, as his mind fractures, as his hands, once steady, once just, become stained with blood. The cinematography ensures that every close-up drips with paranoia, every shadow feels like a looming betrayal, and every whisper carries the weight of impending doom. The king does not just lose his throne, he loses himself. The impact of Katanga was immediate. When the credits rolled, there was no applause at first, only silence. The kind of silence that follows a moment of realization. The Fespaco jury, led by the late Malian filmmaker Souleymane Cissé, was tasked with evaluating dozens of films. But this was different. This was not just a film. It was a reflection of power itself, of the way it seduces, corrupts, and ultimately consumes. Timeless and universal, the jury called it. But perhaps the greatest praise came from the audiences themselves. They did not just see a Shakespearean tragedy. They saw their histories, their leaders, their struggles. And at that moment, Katanga was no longer just a film. It was a warning that power, once poisoned, can never be purified again. So, what was the reaction to this film? Some victories belong to individuals, and some victories belong to nations. When Dani Kouyaté stepped onto the stage at Fespaco 2025 to accept the Yennega Golden Stallion, he was not just a director claiming an award. He was a son of Burkina Faso, carrying the spirit of an entire people onto the grandest stage of African cinema. This was not just the recognition of a film. It was the coronation of a legacy, a moment when the world had no choice but to acknowledge the power of Burkinabe storytelling. The weight of history, the dreams of an entire generation, and the unshaken resilience of a people all converged in that one singular moment. But before we talk about that night, we must talk about what this prize means. Because the Golden Stallion of Yennega is not just an award, it is a symbol, a promise, a beacon of African cinematic excellence. In the world of cinema, every industry has its highest honor. Hollywood has the Academy Awards, France has the Palme d'Or. But in Africa, there is one prize that stands above all others, the Yennega Golden Stallion. More than just a trophy, it is a testament to the greatest achievements in African filmmaking. It is a recognition of stories told from the soul of the continent, stories that resist dilution, and stories that refuse to be forgotten. It is a prize that has been awarded only to the boldest, the most daring, the most groundbreaking films in African history. To win it is not just to win an award, it is to be immortalized. It is to stand among legends. Dani Kouyaté knew this. He knew what this prize meant, not just to him, but to Burkina Faso itself, because his nation has always been the beating heart of African cinema. And yet, before his victory, only 2 Burkinabe directors had ever claimed this honor. The last time Burkina Faso brought the Golden Stallion home, it was 1997. 28 years of waiting, 28 years of near misses. That wait was finally over. There are moments in life when everything aligns, when history, culture, and destiny collide to create something unforgettable. This was one of those moments. Dani Kouyaté was presented with something far greater than just the Golden Stallion as he took center stage. He was wrapped in gold, not in the metaphorical sense, but literally. The traditional golden robe, designed by the renowned Burkinabe designer Issa Balogo, was placed upon his shoulders. This was no ordinary garment. This was a symbol of kingship, a reflection of Burkinabe pride, heritage, and artistic excellence. It was a reminder that this was not just the crowning of a filmmaker. This was the coronation of a new cinematic ruler. It was a tradition that went beyond film. This was how Burkina Faso honored its greatest artists, its storytellers, its keepers of history. And on this night, Dani Kouyaté became one of them. When Kouyaté finally spoke, his words did not belong to him alone. They belonged to his country, to its history, to its struggles, to its triumphs. I dedicate this Golden Stallion to the people of Burkina Faso and to those who died defending our homeland. Burkina Faso has never been a country that waits for others to define it. It is a country that stands tall, fights back, and reclaims its narrative. And in this moment, through art, through film, through the power of storytelling, Dani Kouyaté had given his people another victory. Some nations are known for their wealth. others for their military strength. But Burkina Faso? Burkina Faso is known for its stories. From the days of Gaston Traoré, the legendary director who first brought the Golden Stallion home in 1983, to the new generation of filmmakers carving their paths, this is a country that has never stopped dreaming. And now, thanks to Katanga, the dance of the scorpions, thanks to Dani Kouyaté, the world was reminded once again, Burkina Faso is not just a participant in African cinema. It is a leader, a force, a legacy that cannot be ignored. Now the question is, what does this film and winning the award mean for Africa? Some films win awards, and then some films change the course of history. Katanga. The Dance of the Scorpions is not just a film, it is a movement, a declaration, a turning point for African cinema and its place in the global film industry. Dani Kouyaté did not just make a film for Burkina Faso, he made a film that reclaims the African narrative, proving that the continent's stories are not secondary, not niche, and not limited to the gaze of foreign investors or the approval of Western critics. This is a moment that belongs not just to one filmmaker, but to an entire generation of African storytellers who have been fighting to tell their stories on their terms. For decades, African cinema has been shaped by external forces. Whether through foreign film festivals, international distributors, or funding agencies, African filmmakers have often had to modify their stories to fit the expectations of Western audiences. They were told that their films needed to be accessible, a code word for making them more palatable to a non-African audience. They were advised to focus on poverty, war, and struggle, as if Africa's only role in cinema was to serve as a backdrop for human suffering. They were pressured to frame their narratives in a way that Western critics could understand, often stripping away the depth and complexity of African traditions, history, and identity. But Katanga refuses to conform. It does not seek validation from the West. It does not alter its language, its rhythm, or its essence to appeal to foreign audiences. Instead, it forces the world to meet Africa on its terms, to see its power, its artistry, and its cinematic brilliance without the need for translation. This is what makes Katanga revolutionary. It proves that African films do not need approval from outside forces to be great. They already are. Katanga shows that Africa does not need to play by these rules anymore. This is a film that was made in Africa, by Africans, for Africa, and it still won the highest honor in African cinema. This is a film that proves that the future of African cinema lies in ownership, owning our stories, our funding, our distribution, and our platforms. Katanga is not just a film, it is part of a larger cultural shift happening across the continent. Africa is entering a new renaissance, one where its artists, musicians, writers, and filmmakers are taking control of their narratives and redefining what it means to be African in the 21st century. From the rise of Afrobeats taking over the global music industry, to African fashion designers setting new global trends, to African authors dominating international literary awards, this is not just a moment. This is a movement. Katanga is a landmark in this movement. It is proof that African cinema can be bold, intellectual, and artistically groundbreaking. It is a reminder that Africa's past is rich, its present is powerful, and its future is limitless. It is a call to every young African filmmaker, storyteller, and artist to tell their truth unapologetically, without waiting for permission. This is the Africa that is rising, not one that is waiting for recognition, but one that is demanding its place on the global stage. Now that Katanga has proven what is possible, the question is, what comes next? For too long, African cinema has been seen as a small industry, an afterthought, a niche market. But this narrative is changing. With the rise of African streaming platforms, new film academies, and international recognition of African talent, the door has been opened. But the real battle is only beginning. Will African filmmakers continue to fight for independence in their storytelling? Let us know in the comments section. Will African nations invest in their film industries rather than wait for outside funding? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.